The story begins long before any headlines about legal battles, guardianships, or controversial interviews. For years, Wendy Williams built a reputation unlike almost anyone else in television. While most celebrity hosts carefully avoided upsetting powerful figures in the entertainment industry, Wendy earned millions of viewers by doing the exact opposite. She became known as someone who wasn't afraid to ask uncomfortable questions, revisit controversial stories, or challenge celebrities face-to-face. Whether audiences agreed with her or not, people tuned in because they never knew what she might say next. That fearless reputation made Wendy one of the most talked-about personalities in entertainment. Her radio career first introduced listeners to her bold interviewing style, but it was her daytime television show that transformed her to a household name. Every episode carried the possibility that she would comment on the biggest celebrity stories of the day, often saying what many viewers were already thinking but few television hosts would dare say publicly. Some praised her honesty, while others criticized her approach. Yet almost everyone agreed on one thing: Wendy rarely backed away from controversy. As the years passed, her commentary extended far beyond Hollywood gossip. She frequently discussed the pressures of fame, substance abuse, troubled relationships, and the darker side of the entertainment industry. Because of that, many celebrities appreciated her willingness to speak openly, while others viewed her as someone who crossed lines in pursuit of a headline. Those conflicting opinions only increased public interest, making every interview and every monologue feel unpredictable. Among the many celebrities Wendy discussed over the years, Whitney Houston remained one of the most significant. Whitney's extraordinary talent had made her one of the greatest vocalists of all time, but her personal struggles were also heavily covered by the media. Wendy often commented on those struggles during her broadcasts, sometimes in ways that sparked criticism from viewers who felt she was being too harsh. Others argued that Wendy was simply addressing issues that the public already knew about and that other media personalities avoided discussing directly. Looking back today, many of those old interviews have resurfaced online, leading audiences to re-examine what Wendy actually said at the time. Social media has given new life to clips that originally aired decades ago, allowing entirely new audiences to debate whether Wendy was unfairly critical or whether she was asking questions that others refused to ask. Those conversations have become even more intense as documentaries, interviews, and retrospective discussions continue to revisit Whitney Houston's legacy. At the same time, Wendy's own life began changing dramatically. The confident television personality who once dominated daytime ratings slowly disappeared from television. Reports about health concerns emerged, followed by news that her show would eventually come to an end. Then came perhaps the biggest surprise of all: Wendy's placement under a court-ordered guardianship, a legal arrangement that quickly became the subject of intense public debate. Fans who had watched her for years suddenly found themselves asking entirely different questions, not about celebrities Wendy covered, but about Wendy herself. As public interest shifted toward her personal situation, many people started revisiting older interviews in search of clues about her career, her relationships within the entertainment industry, and the conflicts she had experienced with influential figures over the years. One interview in particular began circulating more than almost any other. It involved legendary music executive Clive Davis and focused on one of the most tragic moments in modern music history: the death of Whitney Houston. That interview would eventually become one of the most discussed moments of Wendy's career, not because it provided definitive answers, but because of the direct questions Wendy chose to ask. Years later, those exchanges continued to generate millions of views, fueling debates across social media about celebrity culture, media responsibility, and how powerful figures respond during moments of tragedy. And as viewers continued digging through those old clips, many realized that the story surrounding Whitney Houston's final days and Wendy's willingness to question what happened afterward was far more complicated than they originally remembered. That realization sets the stage for the next chapter, where one unforgettable night would become the center of a debate that still hasn't completely faded. By early 2012, the music industry was preparing for one of its biggest weekends of the year. Artists, producers, executives, and media outlets from around the world had gathered in Los Angeles for the annual Grammy celebrations. As always, one of the most anticipated events wasn't the awards ceremony itself, but the exclusive pre-Grammy gala hosted by legendary music executive Clive Davis. The invitation-only event had become an institution in the industry, attracting some of the biggest names in entertainment every single year. At the same time, Whitney Houston was also in Los Angeles. Although her career had experienced incredible highs and difficult lows, there was still widespread hope that she could make another successful comeback. She had recently completed work on the film Sparkle, and fans were eager to see what the next chapter of her career might look like. Many believe she still possessed the charisma and talent that had made her one of the greatest vocalists of all time. But behind the scenes, reports suggested Whitney was still facing significant personal challenges. For years, the media had closely followed her struggles, often blurring the line between genuine concern and relentless tabloid coverage. Every public appearance generated headlines, with photographers and reporters analyzing everything from her appearance to her performances. The constant scrutiny meant that even ordinary moments became front-page news. Then, on February 11, 2012, everything changed. That afternoon, emergency responders were called to Whitney Houston's room at the Beverly Hilton Hotel after she was found unresponsive in the bathtub. Despite efforts to revive her, she was pronounced dead later that day. The news spread across the hotel almost immediately before rapidly reaching television networks, newsrooms, and social media around the world. Within minutes, what had been expected to be a weekend of celebration turned into one of mourning. The timing of the tragedy shocked everyone. Hundreds of guests had already arrived at the Beverly Hilton for Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy gala, held in the same hotel. As reports of Whitney's death emerged, many wondered whether the evening's event would be canceled. It was an unprecedented situation, and there was no obvious roadmap for how organizers should respond. Ultimately, the gala went ahead as planned, though portions of the evening were dedicated to honoring Whitney's life and career. Clive Davis later explained publicly that, after discussions with Whitney's family and others involved, the decision was made to continue with the event while transforming it into a tribute. Musical performances and speeches acknowledged the enormous loss the industry had suffered, and many attendees described the atmosphere as emotional and somber rather than celebratory. Even so, the decision quickly became one of the most debated aspects of that tragic day. Some people believed continuing the gala was the appropriate choice, arguing that celebrating Whitney's extraordinary legacy through music was exactly what she would have wanted. Others felt that the event should have been postponed or canceled entirely out of respect, especially considering that news of her passing had broken only hours earlier. The debate wasn't limited to fans. Journalists, commentators, and television personalities all weighed in, each offering a different perspective on what should have happened. Among the most outspoken voices was Wendy Williams, known for asking direct questions that many other hosts avoided. Wendy publicly challenged whether continuing the gala had been the right decision. In a later interview with Clive Davis, she questioned not only the choice to proceed with the event but also reflected on whether more could have been done over the years to support Whitney during her struggles. The interview became one of the most widely discussed conversations of Wendy's career because it captured two very different viewpoints, one defending a difficult decision made during an extraordinary situation, and the other asking whether those closest to Whitney could have done more. The exchange continues to circulate online today, often sparking renewed discussions whenever Whitney Houston's legacy is revisited. While no interview can change the events of that day, the conversation remains a powerful example of how public figures are often expected to answer difficult questions in the aftermath of tragedy. And as viewers revisited those moments years later, they began looking beyond the headlines, asking not only what happened that day, but why this interview continues to resonate with so many people more than a decade later. That growing curiosity would eventually bring Wendy herself back into the center of an entirely different story. As the years passed after Whitney Houston's death, the public conversation didn't simply fade away. Instead, it evolved. Every new documentary, interview, or anniversary seemed to bring fresh discussions about her life, her extraordinary career, and the decisions made by the people around her. Among those discussions, one television interview consistently resurfaced online, drawing millions of views from people who either remembered it when it first aired or were discovering it for the first time. The interview featured Wendy Williams sitting across from Clive Davis, the music executive who had played a pivotal role in Whitney Houston's career from the very beginning. Their conversation wasn't filled with shouting or dramatic confrontations. Instead, what made it memorable was Wendy's willingness to ask questions that many interviewers might have avoided. She challenged him about the difficult decisions surrounding Whitney's final years and, in particular, the choice to continue the annual pre-Grammy gala on the night Whitney died. Clive Davis defended his decision, explaining that the event had ultimately become a tribute to Whitney rather than a celebration. He stated publicly that he believed continuing the evening was the appropriate course of action under the circumstances and that Whitney's family did not ask for the event to be canceled. From his perspective, honoring one of music's greatest voices through performances and remembrance reflected the significance of her legacy. Not everyone agreed. For many viewers, the emotional impact of knowing that Whitney had died only hours before the event made the decision difficult to understand. Television commentators, journalists, fans, and fellow artists all expressed different opinions in the days and weeks that followed. Some believed the tribute was meaningful and respectful. Others felt that simply postponing the gathering would have sent a stronger message about the magnitude of the loss. More than a decade later, there is still no universal agreement, which explains why clips from that interview continue circulating online whenever Whitney's name returns to the headlines. Wendy's role in that conversation became one of the defining moments of her career because it reflected the style that had made her famous in the first place. She rarely approached interviews with scripted, comfortable questions. Instead, she often voiced the questions she believed viewers themselves were asking at home. Whether audiences agreed with her or disagreed, they knew she was unlikely to avoid difficult subjects simply because the guest was powerful or influential. That reputation also came with consequences. Over the years, Wendy's outspoken style earned her devoted fans, but it also created friction with numerous celebrities and public figures. Some appreciated her honesty, while others felt she crossed a line into overly aggressive commentary. Those differing opinions only fueled public fascination with her career, making nearly every major interview a topic of conversation long after it aired. As social media expanded, older television clips found an entirely new audience. Moments that originally aired years earlier suddenly reached millions of younger viewers through short-form videos and online discussions. Context was often lost, with brief excerpts spreading far more quickly than the complete interviews. As a result, people began revisiting old conversations, analyzing body language, tone, and wording in ways that hadn't happened when the interviews first aired. Every clip generated new theories, debates, and interpretations, even when no new evidence had emerged. At the same time, Whitney Houston's legacy continued to grow. Her music remained among the most celebrated in history, inspiring new generations of listeners while documentaries and retrospectives explored both her remarkable achievements and the personal struggles she faced. Those projects generally emphasized the immense pressures of fame, the relentless media attention surrounding her private life, and the lasting impact she left on popular music. While many questions about her life continue to be discussed publicly, the official findings regarding her death remain unchanged, even as online conversations often take on a life of their own. For Wendy Williams, however, the story was beginning to shift. Instead of asking difficult questions about others, she was gradually becoming the subject of public concern herself. Reports about her health, her absence from television, and later her court-ordered guardianship transformed the conversation completely. Fans who once watched her analyze celebrity headlines now found themselves wondering what was happening behind the scenes in her own life. And that unexpected turn would open an entirely new chapter, one that placed Wendy Williams, rather than the celebrities she covered, at the center of one of the most closely followed stories in entertainment. As public attention increasingly shifted toward Wendy Williams' own circumstances, many people began reflecting on the remarkable transformation of her career. For years, she had been the person asking difficult questions, challenging celebrities, and driving conversations that dominated entertainment news. Now, the spotlight had turned toward her. Reports about her health, the end of her daytime television show, and her court-ordered guardianship sparked widespread concern among fans who had watched her for decades. And like many celebrity stories that disappear after a few news cycles, Wendy's situation continued to evolve. Family members, friends, former colleagues, and Wendy herself made public statements at different times, often presenting different perspectives about her condition and her future. That only fueled more public interest, with supporters calling for greater transparency while others urged caution, reminding audiences that health and legal matters are often far more complicated than they appear from the outside. At the same time, Whitney Houston's legacy remained as powerful as ever. More than a decade after her passing, her music continues to reach new generations of listeners. Her voice, her performances, and her influence on popular music have ensured that she remains one of the most celebrated artists in history. Every documentary, anniversary tribute, or televised special reminds audiences not only of her incredible talent but also of the immense pressures that often come with worldwide fame. The discussions surrounding Whitney's final years also continue, but it's important to recognize the difference between documented facts and the many theories that circulate online. The internet has made it easier than ever for old interviews to resurface, short video clips to go viral, and speculation to spread rapidly. While these discussions often generate millions of views, they don't necessarily change what has been established through official investigations or public records. That distinction is one of the biggest challenges in today's media landscape, where viral content can sometimes overshadow verified information. Wendy Williams' interview with Clive Davis remains memorable because it captured a moment when a television host asked questions that many viewers were already debating. Whether people agreed with her approach or disagreed entirely, the interview became part of a larger conversation about accountability, public perception, and how influential figures respond during moments of tragedy. Years later, it still serves as a reminder of the role journalists and media personalities can play in asking difficult questions even when there are no easy answers. Perhaps that's why these stories continue to resonate. They aren't just about one interview or one tragic event. They're about the complex relationship between fame, media attention, and public curiosity. Every major celebrity story becomes a combination of verified reporting, personal opinions, and online speculation, making it increasingly important for viewers to separate established facts from claims that remain unverified. As audiences revisit these moments today, many find themselves asking broader questions. How much responsibility do media outlets have when covering celebrities during personal struggles? Should public figures be judged solely by the headlines that surround them? And how should viewers evaluate the endless stream of theories that appear online long after the original events have passed? Those questions don't have simple answers, but they remain central to understanding why stories like these continue attracting attention years later. One thing is certain, both Wendy Williams and Whitney Houston left an undeniable mark on entertainment history, albeit in very different ways. One became famous for asking the questions others avoided, while the other became one of the greatest voices music has ever known. Their stories intersected at unforgettable moments that continue to be revisited, analyzed, and debated not because every question has been answered, but because some moments in popular culture continue to provoke discussion long after the headlines have faded. Years after these events unfolded, people are still watching the interviews, revisiting the headlines, and debating what really happened behind the scenes. Some believe every public answer raises new questions, while others believe the documented record already tells the story. Whatever your perspective, one thing is clear: conversations about celebrity, influence, and media responsibility aren't ending anytime soon. What do you think? Did Wendy Williams ask the questions that needed to be asked? Or do you think the public has spent too much time focusing on speculation instead of verified facts? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more carefully researched stories about the biggest moments in entertainment history, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.